In a world that is full of one-size-fits-all solutions, if you have found yourself decluttering and wondering why what works a charm for everybody else doesn't work for you, or even worse, if you have felt that disheartening notion that you are decluttering wrong, even if you find yourself using a way that clicks better with your brain, I am a professional organizer and I have helped hundreds of families to declutter their homes. And let me tell you something, there are some absolute myths out there about decluttering. So come along with me and I'm going to help you discover the gems from the lies. Let's start things off with a hot take. Does it spark joy? Might work really well in some areas of your home, but for lots and lots of people, it really is not a great decluttering question. And creative peeps, I am talking to you. You are the people who see beauty in absolutely everything. You see the possibilities of what things could be, the projects that you could make, and we need more people like you in the world. But when it comes to decluttering, saying, does this spark joy or do you think it's beautiful, is really not a great question for you, because the answer will always be yes, which is wonderful. So instead of using questions like that, you might choose to use really specific questions like, can I finish this project in the next 12 months? Is this something that I can take on right now? This is so beautiful, but does it match the aesthetic that I want for this room? Do I have any more of these things? Because I'm surrounded by beautiful things, I need to make sure I'm only keeping what I can have out at any given time. So don't feel bad if you've tried using this question and it hasn't worked for you. It probably just means that you see beauty in everything and that there's some better questions to use next time. Myth number 2 is that you need to pull everything out in order to declutter. And let me tell you, that can be a great tool to use if you're just going through a cupboard or if you've already gone through a space before. But if you are at the start of your decluttering journey, pulling everything out is going to be super overwhelming. And sometimes what can happen is you get interrupted or life gets busy and then that stuff stays out and it just adds to the chaos that you already had there. So instead of decluttering and creating calm, it just creates more chaos. So if this is you, if you feel really overwhelmed when you have to get everything out, you don't need to do that. Start with one box, one cupboard, one drawer. Just do things one at a time. As you go through, have a look what's in there, get rid of what you can, keep what you love and what you use, and don't worry about the rest. Let's talk about piles. Now, I am kind of a yes-no piler kind of gal, but I know that out there's this trend to definitely don't make piles or only make 2 piles. And I want to say that if you find it easier like me to just have 2 piles, then definitely do that. But I've also worked with a lot of people where these piles become their little to-do lists. It helps their brain to section out these categories, especially if you're tackling a big job like a spare room or a basement where you might have stuff you want to return to someone or stuff that's going to live in other areas of your house. It's not as simple as throw away and keep. So if that is you, if your brain likes to compartmentalize things, having a couple of different piles, as long as you make sure that you're going back and getting those piles where they need to be, you should totally do it. And don't stop doing it, because if you just do a yes/no pile, I guarantee you will start to get stuck because your brain wants things to be a little bit more ordered. So whatever works for you is best. Now, I'm sure you've heard this one before, and it is don't organize, declutter. And while I totally get the sentiment of that, we definitely don't want to just keep reorganizing clutter and not getting rid of those things we no longer need. Sometimes what we actually need is a little organizational win. If you are somewhere like your bathroom, particularly if you're at the start of your journey, organizing a space gives you a little win. It lets you know that this area is clear and clean and looks the way you want to, and you can go back and declutter more later. It's also a really good idea if you are feeling overwhelmed by clutter that sometimes you just need a space to feel calm before you start that process of making lots of decisions decluttering. So if you need to do a little clean, a little organize, put some stuff into some plastic containers just so you have some visual quiet, absolutely do that. I promise you, you will declutter way more in the long run if you have these little wins. I hear this tip all the time, and that is that you should only touch items once when you're decluttering. And although that would be great in an ideal world, I think for most of us, particularly if you're a lover of abundance, that is really unachievable. And that actually moving items, tweaking what you have, seeing what things you're actually using is a better process for long-term decluttering. I like to think of decluttering a bit like an onion. That first layer is the hardest to get rid of.
Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. You get it. We both have layers.
But once you start to go through your items, revisiting them, thinking about whether you really need it, having a maybe box that you come back to in 6 months, all of these habits actually help you to declutter long term and reduce the amount of items that you have in your home. The main takeaway about decluttering myths is that there's no universal tool to help you declutter. What it really comes down to, the truth lies in genuinely finding things that work uniquely for you, taking what you use and leaving what you don't. Think of it like a decluttering toolbox, that you have all of these tools at your disposal and you can select and choose which ones work for you the best in each different circumstance. The number one thing I hope that you understand is that there is absolutely no wrong way to declutter, and whatever works for you is best.